Now, when two parents split up, what happens to the kids can often be the hardest issue. Yesterday, Brad Pitt won joint custody of his children after becoming embroiled in a bitter battle with ex-wife Angelina Jolie, which seems to have gone on for a long time, doesn't it? Earlier in the week, Angelina had complained that the judge in the hearing wouldn't let the children speak in the case. So how much say should a child have when it comes to custody? No clear-cut answer to that one, I don't think. Kelly, what do you think?
No, I think it's a really difficult one for the children because obviously it's not their fault. None of it has been their choice. They've not had any choice in any of that. And obviously it's an age-appropriate thing here. Depends on the age of the child and what they're able to handle because, you know, emotional distress that can come just with the divorce itself is difficult enough to handle. But I've been in a relationship with a man who had children and I've also been that child that's in the middle of a divorce. And so I feel like what we don't tend to do is think about the child's perspective. And sometimes children are adult enough in their own way to be able to have to be able to make an informed decision. I'm not saying that we discuss all of the adult ins and outs or all of the conflict that goes on, but just in terms of some of the basic conversations that you have, include the children in those conversations.
So can I ask, how old you were when your parents split up?
So I was a teenager, a teenager when my mum and dad separated. But I really wished they'd had certain conversations with me. I was aware of what was going on. Like a lot of people think children are stupid or they don't know or whatever. They're not aware. They are more aware than you would maybe first think. And having that conversation by just putting those things to them, saying, you know, basic things like, how do you feel about that? And what would you think about that? And just hearing their opinion. I'm not saying that their decision needs to be your final one, but at least include them in the conversation.
Were you consulted?
I think my parents, it was a really rough situation for them. And so for me, I just wish that they'd talked to me and been a bit more open with me beforehand, because then I think I would have been able to have some influence and been able to say, well, look, this is what I think about that and this is what I think about that. And now, you know, my parents have both feel like, you know, my mum's like, oh, I just wish I'd spoken to you a bit more. Because I think parents are instinctively parental, want to protect, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, sometimes including children in that conversation, you learn things. You learn things about them and how they feel about things too.
Well, I'm looking at a comment here from Angela. She says, there's no doubt in my mind that children's feelings should be included in any way possible. As a social worker, I've enabled many children to have their say in a safe and age-appropriate way. So, I mean, it can be done and probably should be done, but I suppose when you've got parents who are you know, highly emotional and it's a difficult situation, we don't always do the right thing, do we?
I think it depends on the age as well, whether they're included in, like, with courts or whatever. Lauren was 3 when I split up with Tony, her dad and that, and we've got a really good relationship now, but at the time I was obviously devastated, and the worst thing was we lived in this little mews and he moved in opposite with his sister and his new girlfriend. And that used to really hurt when I used to see them in the car going out and whatever. So that was... I used to sit and play sad music and cry all the time.
But I'm sure there'd be a lot of women that know how you feel.
It just... obviously, it was worse because I could see them every day, you know, like...
But did you really have to dig deep to do the right thing? I mean, I don't have experience of this, but I have to be honest and say, I think I would know in my head what the right thing to do was. I wouldn't be 100% confident that I would do it. Is that a terrible thing to say?
I think you separate yourself, don't you?
I never once ran her dad down or anything. I mean, she just knew that we'd split up and that we weren't together anymore. Because, like, when my mum and dad split up, they made it really hard. My mum particularly, just because she still loved my dad and she's Catholic and she thought she'd be married forever and that. So when he met a new partner, we had to keep it secret from her that we were seeing the new partner because she wouldn't have liked that at all. So I made a conscious decision that when I did split up with Tony, I wasn't going to do the same thing to Lauren, you know, like, so we used to see her every Saturday, take her out and everything. And as I say, like, years later, we've got a great relationship and he's a really, really good dad.
I think it's hard, isn't it? Because kids can be people pleasers, can't they? They can kind of say one thing to one and one to another because they are aware, like you say, they are so aware of what goes on around them. And they are like little sponges and they do notice your emotions and I think they'll do anything to kind of keep both partners happy and I think that's where it becomes difficult. And then I think within a court situation, sometimes you have partners that make it so difficult for someone to see their child. When, you know, there's parents out there who are desperate for their, you know, there's mums who are desperate for their kid's dad to want to see their kid or vice versa. And that you've got parents out there who are desperate for that equal, like with Brad and Angelina. And we don't know why she didn't want that to happen, you know, and maybe there was good reason. But I just think it's so hard, isn't it? You can see it from both sides. And like you say, it's really age appropriate. But I think, like Kelly said, you should never overlook a kid's feelings on that.
Jan has emailed in to say, I was 10 when I was asked by the judge in court who I wanted to live with, mum or dad or grandparents. I chose the grandparents, best decision ever. Children know more than we give them credit for, and I think that's true. They really do. They can sense everything that's going on, can't
But
they?
then on the flip side of it, and this is picking up with what you were saying, Frankie, Michelle says, no, because you're basically asking the child which parent that they prefer. There should be enough legally based evidence if one parent is unsuitable or dangerous without the child picking
But I
a side.
think that's the key. She said legally based evidence. If there's evidence that's not permitted in court and that's left out, that judge is only able to judge based on what he's seen or heard. But if it's not permissible, then that judge isn't making a decision that's well-rounded. So she's right.
But also, most divorces don't get to court.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, that's quite an extreme situation when it's in court. Usually it's the people trying to work it out themselves. And, like, who's the independent
Oh, it's just so
person there?
hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.